The Mercedes car is yet again porpoising. Yes, you heard me right. With the latest batch of upgrades around Belgium, Mercedes not only have been able to generate a significant amount of downforce, but they have also been able to bring back porpoising into their cars. This is huge news, both for us fans and the Mercedes team. So, what is really going on with the development of the W14? Why is the porpoising phenomenon back in the Mercedes car? Can they engineer it out of the car when the car hits the track at Zandvoort after the summer break? The Silver Arrows completed its second batch of upgrades around Belgium by introducing a revised sidepods version to go with modifications made to the car's floor edges. The radiator inlet has been rounded off more rather than the previous boxy shape. This, according to the team, has been done to improve both the car's cooling and the aerodynamic performance. Cooling was an issue for Mercedes around Hungary, but don't expect this upgrade to be a result of the W14 overheating around Budapest. These upgrades were announced by Toto Wolff way before the British Grand Prix itself, so consider this upgrade to be something which was in the works for some time. While the undercut beyond the radiator inlet is more or less the same, the change of shape of the radiator inlet will have its own aerodynamic impact. Moving a bit further behind, we can see the rear of the sidepods having a sort of a concave design now when compared to its previous iteration. This won't have any impact on the car's cooling packaging, as we know how compact the Mercedes cooling package is and was at times when the Zeropod design was in effect. This concave part on the sidepods acts as a low-pressure zone. When the air flowing from the radiator inlet is of high pressure, the low-pressure area sucks airflow from the high-pressure zones. This effect will lead to a much more stronger and high-strength airflow from the sidepods to flow to the Coke bottle area, energizing the car's rear end, which will aid in the generation of a significant portion of the car's rear downforce. With all that, Mercedes introduced a new rear wing specification, a low downforce rear wing, which will be circuit-specific. This rear wing is a wing type used in circuits like Spa and Monza, where straight-line speed is a key factor. The upper plane of the new rear wing has a lower angle of attack, combined with a much more shallower spoon. This design makes it a very less loaded wing, resulting in less downforce generated, but improves the car's straight-line speed by reducing the car's overall drag. The new rear wing does have a gurney flap, which is a clever design trick to generate that extra bit of downforce, while still shedding overall drag from the car. The Belgian Grand Prix was a sprint weekend, therefore the team did not have enough time to actually understand their upgrades properly, and the rain-interrupted weekend made things even difficult for the Silver Arrows. Nevertheless, Lewis Hamilton was able to qualify fourth for the Grand Prix, while Russell qualified P8. The difference was mainly down to the rear wing configurations both drivers ran, as Lewis opted for the new low downforce wing, while Russell stuck up with the medium downforce rear wing. The same was seen in the sprint qualifying and shootout. With rain hanging around, we were able to get a good glimpse at how the aero around the upgraded W14 was working. While all seemed to be in tandem, we saw one thing returning, which is not a good sign for the Brackley-based squad. The W14 was bouncing like crazy around the high-speed Spa race circuit, more in line with last year's porpoising. Lewis Hamilton confirmed this after the Grand Prix, as he went on to add, "It was kind of a non-eventful race really. I wasn't able to keep up with the cars ahead. We had big bouncing this weekend, we were back to what we had last year." Even his teammate George Russell echoed the same worries, as he believes that the bouncing was what limited both Mercedes drivers from showing their true pace at Spa. "We suffered with a huge amount of bouncing," he said. "A number of teams did, maybe not as severe as we did, but still obviously it is a bit of a shame to see that, as a sport at the pinnacle of motorsport, the majority of teams are still struggling with bouncing. I hope something can be solved in that regard in the future. This is worrying signs for Mercedes. That's because the W14 did not have any sort of bouncing until this point. Last year, the W13 bounced like crazy due to the immense downforce numbers the team tried to chase with an early concept. That did not work out, so the team dialed out a significant portion of that downforce for this year's W14, which resulted on the W14 having a poor rear end. Mercedes since Bahrain started to work slowly on improving the downforce generation of the W14, and the Belgium upgrades was the next step in the process. But by trying to improve load generation, they again have come back to where they left off last season, at porpoising again. Team boss Toto Wolff said that the bouncing was a big limiting factor for both drivers, but for Hamilton in particular due to the 7-time world champion running a low downforce rear wing. Wolff mentioned that Hamilton had to lift off the throttle at Blanchimont on the third sector, which is a pretty flat-out corner on these modern Formula 1 cars, which actually costs a lot of lap time. He also expanded on how the bouncing affected the tire degradation, as the bouncing caused significant tire wear around Spa. So the boss wants his team to find answers quickly as to why the phenomenon it felt it had got on top of made a return, as he opened up on just how much it had overshadowed its weekend at Spa. The main limiting factor was the bouncing. The car was just bouncing literally on every straight, explained Wolff. Even Blanchimont was a corner where Lewis had to lift, and it is an easy flat normally. So, you're bouncing on the straight, you overheat the tires under braking, and that is a vicious circle. It was the main limiting factor this weekend. It's frustrating to check out for the holidays like this, but the next few days, we've got to understand more based on the data. The W14, according to what we know and what we saw from onboard footage, is bouncing on the straights, corners, and even under braking. This bouncing has two sides for Mercedes. One is that the bouncing, of course, is back. The other side is that the bouncing proves that Mercedes has been able to add a significant amount of downforce with its Belgian upgrades. Now porpoising is like a natural phenomenon within ground effect cars. If the team maximizes downforce beyond the potential of what the concept has to offer, the bouncing will be the result. And with teams manipulating ride heights to produce more downforce, porpoising will be a returning phenomenon than a passing one. Now this can be positive for Mercedes, but I believe it's more negative than positive. That's because the team admit that they don't understand why the car is now bouncing as they chase for more downforce. Wolff thinks the underfloor could be the reason behind the return of porpoising, as he mentioned that the engineers back at the factory will analyze the data to find what the cause of the bouncing is to find a solution for the next Grand Prix. I think the floor could have been the reason why we've been bouncing, but we're going to see it in the data. And maybe there's something that we need to find, because I still believe the direction that we're going now is the right one. Wolff here reckons that Mercedes are moving in the right direction, and he believes that the new direction the team has taken is the proper one. With the new front wing at Silverstone, and with the new upgraded side pods and updated floor edge, we'll set up the team's big return for 2024. But with the upgrades, the car is bouncing again. Wolff talked about how the team's measuring devices are not yet again having proper correlation, which he thinks is a big factor which has played into the return of bouncing. We've had a lot of bouncing this weekend. Both Lewis and George said they bounced on the brakes and it hit the tires. It limited their pace. We had an upgrade that added downforce, but maybe that wasn't good. We have to put our heads together to find out why. The problem is that the downforce measurement tool that worked for the last 10 years no longer works. So why is it reflected in the data? We need analysis to see if it will. This is an interesting piece added by the Austrian. You might expect that more downforce is good for the car, but more downforce depends on how it is generated. The Red Bull does most of it through its floor, and also properly. That's why the RB19 is a stable machine, yet the fastest on the grid. But Mercedes have made changes to the bodywork and the floor edges and have added significant amounts of downforce. But that seems to have caused porpoising once more. Mercedes did not have enough practice time at Belgium, and the bouncing could have been a setup issue through the ride heights. But from what we have heard from Toto and the two Mercedes drivers, that does not seem to be the case, as they have no idea whatsoever of what the issue behind the bouncing is. So what do you guys think? Is this the return of porpoising for Mercedes? What do you think is the cause behind the bouncing at Spa? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.